come nice and close. I don't bite. Grab a seat, get comfortable. Maybe get your refills now, because we're going to start. So thank you for coming. All right. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. My name is Ann Weber. I'm one of the co-founders here at Impact Hub, and we're really excited to see Startup Grind Honolulu come back to life. So thank you, Meg Dad, for bringing it. Thank you for having a passion for it, and thank you all for being here. Yeah. Also, thanks to Annie for helping us out tonight. Thank you for your support. So a little bit about us and some housekeeping, and then I'm going to turn it away so that you guys can share your stories. So thanks. Impact Hub is a community space for social impact. So we have co-working, offices, meeting, and event space for all of your needs. Think of it like a gym membership, but for office space. We're part of a global network, and there's over 102 Impact Hubs worldwide. So you can actually visit them as members, which is really fun. Housekeeping. So,
yours? Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I can talk. Okay, this is working. Thank you so much for coming. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here. I'm very excited to have you all here, and I really like this space. It feels cozy. It feels like a fireside chat. And if you don't know about Startup Grind, we are the largest independent startup community in the world. We have 500 chapters across the world in 125 cities. We're sponsored by Google for Startups, and we are all about inspiring entrepreneurs. So we couldn't have asked for a better guest than Jiwon. And a little bit about Jiwon, I'm very honored to introduce you. She's the head of community at Wefunder. She also has an accelerator called XX, and she lives in San Francisco Bay Area. And she moved from Korea when she was 10 years old, when you were 10 years old, and you studied at UC Berkeley, correct? Okay. And she has done something similar to this, where she interviewed founders of well-known companies like Airbnb, Girls Who Code, trying to think of some other ones, Zenefits, Remix, and more, and we can probably talk about that. And yes, so I'm going to have you all get up on your feet and give a warm welcome to Jiwon. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Jiwon, and how was it like growing up?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
So hi, my name is Jiwon. I was born in Korea, in Seoul, the capital, and I grew up there until I was 10 years old. And I moved to the US because my dad had a 40-year-old crisis, and he's like, I don't want to live in Korea anymore. I don't think I'll move up the ladder. So he moved us to the US without explaining really what's happening. He got an MBA. We moved to a city called San Bernardino, and that's where I grew up. I was a really good, typical immigrant child. I studied very hard, and I thought I'd be a doctor all my life.
Okay, but things didn't work out that way. So what happened? Why didn't you become a doctor?
So I didn't become a doctor because, well, I hated science classes. So that was very obvious, but I did it for 2 years still. Hated organic chemistry especially. And then I actually got an internship to shadow a doctor. He was an amazing cardiologist, and most people, if they shadowed him, like they became a doctor, they were inspired to be a doctor. But I hated going to the hospital to shadow him. And so that was a sign for me that I hated being in hospitals. So that was the first time where I had a rude awakening that I had to do something else. And my entire life, I thought I was going to be a doctor. So it was really scary. But I told my mom I didn't want to be a doctor anymore. And then she didn't talk to me for a month. She was so mad at me. She's like, you're just giving up because it's hard. But I'm so glad I made that decision.
Was there any early signs of entrepreneurship? Did you ever know you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
0%. There was no entrepreneur in my family. and which is why I interviewed Asian entrepreneurs when I was unemployed. But yeah, I had no examples of entrepreneurship growing up. It was nothing it was never talked about in the family. Yeah, and I also studied pre-med classes all my life, so I didn't know what entrepreneurship was until I think my last semester at Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what led into interviewing entrepreneurs, and especially Asian entrepreneurs? And I know you have a passion for female founders, so we can probably talk about that as well.
So I got a job. I studied economics instead because that seemed easier than pre-med. And then I got a job at a consulting firm. I did it for 6 months and I hated it, and I needed to do something else. But I didn't have a lot of money in savings, but I was like, I'm gonna quit anyway. And after that, what did I do? I just walked every single day. I was very lost. I was really sad. I think I was depressed. And every day I would think, what is it that I really want to do? And if you keep asking yourself that, it's really hard. Like it puts more pressure on you. But I did that every single day. And one day I was like, I'm curious about entrepreneurs because I really like this tea house in Berkeley. I like tea a lot. And this guy who used to be an engineer, he went to China and worked there for a year. And he realized he loved tea and he wanted to bring the tea culture back to San Francisco. And I talked to him and asked him if I can interview him, and just interviewed him and thought it was really fascinating because he kind of had a similar path in life where he was an engineer and didn't enjoy it. And he changed his mind and built something amazing. So yeah, that's how I started with Asha Tea House. Then I interviewed founders of Rotten Tomatoes, Coffee Meets Bagel. I don't know if it's an app that's used here. Namiku. I interviewed like 10 founders who were Asian because I wanted to hear stories from people who look like me. Because when I looked online, I couldn't find people who looked like me at the time, like in 2013. And so I was like, well, I have to find them. I want to ask them how they convinced their moms that they were going to make boba for a living. So I was like, I went to Boba Guys, which is a really popular boba shop in San Francisco. And I asked the two guys, like, how did you convince your mom? Like, what did they say when you quit your full-time jobs to make boba? And I love the stories. Yeah.
And then how did you get involved with Wefunder? And
So,
tell us what
yeah.
Wefunder is for people. Who knows what Wefunder is here?
Many people.
Okay, so let's do that.
So Wefunder is like Kickstarter, but for investing in startups instead of donating money for a product. So it was, 2016. So that's 3 years ago. It became legal for anyone to invest in startups. Before 3 years ago, it was just for accredited investors, people who have a certain amount of income and assets that could invest in startups. So the founders of Wefunder helped change this law, which is called the Jobs Act. And yeah, now you can go on Wefunder and you can find companies like Impact Hub, Honolulu on there. One company from Hawaii was the Hawaiian Ola Brew Company in Big Island, and they also fundraise on Wefunder. I believe
they raised $848,000.
Thank you for the fact check. Yeah, I was like, I know they raised a lot of money, but I forgot. So I came to Big Island. I went to Big Island 3 years ago, and that's where I met them. And they ended up raising so much money.
Yeah, so how did you get involved with Wefunder?
Yeah, sorry, I got off the, yes. So after I was interviewed like 10 Asian founder companies, I was like, oh no, I don't have any money. And I actually drove Lyft because I didn't want to ask my parents for money. And I drove Lyft and I just made enough so that I could pay for rent and food. And then while I was doing that, I was like, I need a job, but nothing sounds interesting to me. So I went on Craigslist, which is not where people go to find jobs, but that's where I went. And there's a section called writing and editing, I think. And my friend's like, you're good at writing, like, why don't you try looking in that section? And I never considered I was good at writing, but I went anyway and found this job called storyteller at Wefunder. And basically, the job description was what I was doing for fun, but for Asian entrepreneurs. And So I was like, this is my dream job. I have to apply. So I applied the same day, wrote a long cover letter for Nick, who's the CEO, sent it in. I didn't hear back for 2 weeks, and I thought I didn't get the job. But he emailed me back, and we had coffee, and I've been there for 4 years since.
Okay, and now let's talk about your passion project, because you've been interviewing. So how many Asian entrepreneurs, or how many entrepreneurs had you interviewed before getting the job with Wefunder?
So my goal was to make a documentary, which was crazy because I had no filming experience, never interviewed people. So I was terrible at it. But I interviewed 10 companies, so roughly like 15 founders probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now let's talk about your passion project, because I know you had a passion project which turned into an accelerator.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, and maybe some of the glory about some of the people you've interviewed and some of the lessons you can share with us.
Right. So XX is an accelerator that I built within Wefunder. So it wasn't like a side project. It was actually a side project within the company. It was a startup within the startup, if that makes sense. And the reason I started it, I built it last year, about a year ago, is because I read an article that said only 2% of VC funding went to female founders. And I thought that number was crazy. I was like, this is not even 20%, it's 2%. And I was so upset about it. I don't know why, but I don't get mad easily, but that stayed with me for a whole week. So I said I have to do something about it because I have the resources. I live in San Francisco. I know a lot of founders. So I decided to do something. And so I talked to Nick, who's the CEO at Wefunder, and he's really supportive. And he's like, why don't you try out doing a female founder fund? And I did research for funds. I'd never considered doing a fund before. I didn't even know what it was. So I interviewed hundreds of female founders to figure out what they were missing. And the biggest thing they were missing wasn't just money. It was community, and not just community of founders, but community of mentors. I think that's something I noticed in Hawaii as well, is there aren't enough mentors in Hawaii. And that's what the female founders told me. So I said, well, let's do an accelerator. And I based off a lot of the content from Y Combinator, because Wefunder went through YC, and Nick was like, this a formula that's worked already, why don't you try that out? So one thing that was different from YC was that we had the founders all live in one house together. So you can imagine female founders, 6-8 of them living in one house in San Francisco together. They had a lot of fun, lots of hair in the shower, but I think everything else was fine.
Yeah. And you're doing something similar here too.
Yes. So I am here. I'm from San Francisco, but I'm here this week because I'm hosting an event called Work Away. So since the female founder cohort, we had another cohort called the immigrant founder cohort. So that one focused on helping immigrant founders. After doing those, we thought, well, those are really intense. It's for 3 months, and it really I guess, made me tired. I was really exhausted after hosting 2 cohorts, and then I thought, well, why not try a shorter cohort? And in Hawaii, because Hawaii is beautiful and everyone will be more relaxed and get creative. And so we have a 1-week event that's going on. I think I saw you at one of the events, and Annie was also there. Were you there as well? Cool. Yeah, so we have a house in Aina Haina? That's the area. Sorry, I don't know. I'm embarrassed. But Aina Haina, I think, is a neighborhood. We got a house there, and basically there are 15 founders from all over the US, 3 from Hawaii, 1 from Big Island, 2 from Oahu, and we all have workshops at 6 p.m. every single day, and 7:30 we have a fireside chat like this, and dinner as well. And yeah, we've been hosting that for the last week.
Okay, so what are some of the lessons you can share with us from your own experience running an accelerator, and also from all the interviews you've done with founders?
Well, I learned from starting an accelerator that you can really build anything in your mind. At first, it seems intimidating because people are like, "Wow, you built an accelerator!" But if you build them like block by block, it's not that hard. It just takes a lot of patience and lots of emails, lots of introductions. But at the end, like if you have it in your head, you can build anything. Is what I learned from building XX. From the founders, I interviewed like a bunch of people. So I've interviewed people who failed many times, people who exited, people who got acquired and didn't make any money and they're really sad. There are billionaires that we interviewed. And I think one thing that I learned is that founders that are really successful are very good people. Like I was so surprised at how nice they were. Like the best founders I think I talked to were the nicest as well. And it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're very kind and if you're positive, then people tend to they want to work for you, and they want that same energy and they want to grow with you. So I think that was the biggest lesson is like if you want to be a good founder, you have to be a good person.
So that's the secret. Be nice, people.
Yeah,
be
be
nice.
nice. But Hawaiians are so nice. Like you're extra nice. So.
What were some of the struggles building that? I'm just surprised how supportive Wefunder has been with your side projects. So what were some of the challenges and how did you manage being head of community and also being a founding partner of XX?
I think the biggest challenge was that it was a startup within the startup. And our startup at the time was 20 people big. And so I think not everyone was super supportive about XX because it was an experiment. So there were people who thought we should focus on our main business. And there were people who really supported XX. And so like if you're trying to do a startup within a startup, it's really, really tricky because people are not always on your side. And so I think that was very challenging. But work-wise, I enjoyed it so much that it didn't feel like extra work.
Okay. So let's check the time. We do something here called 21 questions rapid fire.
Oh my God.
And yes.
You didn't tell me about it.
Yes, so we're gonna do that, and then after that, I'll open it for a Q&A.
Are these fun?
These are supposed to be fun, so we'll see. So, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Oh. Beer or wine?
Beer.
Sushi or tacos?
Tacos.
Tacos. Favorite app?
Sorry?
Favorite app?
Notion.
What is that?
Everyone should download Notion. Notion is a note-taking app, and it's a product that I really fell in love with recently. It's a note-taking app, but it's really good for small companies because it has all of the templates that any small company would use, and it's probably the hottest company in SF right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite OS?
OS?
Like Microsoft or Apple?
Oh, I use Google Pixel. I highly recommend. Android?
Android. Favorite holiday?
Ooh. I don't think I have one. Maybe New Year's.
Okay.
Yeah, my family is so small and we never really celebrate holidays. So New Year's because I feel like starting new.
Favorite car?
Volkswagen Beetle.
Okay. Favorite vacation spot? Hawaii, right?
Actually, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, Hawaii. Hawaii.
Favorite book?
Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Yeah! Yay!
Favorite movie or TV show?
Oh my gosh, this is like Vogue 50 questions. I don't know if you guys read it. I'm not good at this. I think very fast. Favorite movie or... I really like Black Mirror. Yeah. I don't think it's my favorite, but it's so good.
Yeah. I haven't watched it.
What?
Everyone tells me I should watch it. I
You'll
know.
probably watch it all weekend if you start.
Favorite artist? Music?
Ooh, oh my God. Well, lately it's been BTS. I don't know if anyone knows. It's a Korean band. They're so good. Everyone should check them out.
Your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my gosh, it's Let It Go.
Let it go.
Frozen.
Anything you collect?
No, because I'm trying to be a minimalist.
Okay. Good answer.
Trying.
Any unusual skills or talents?
Unusual skill? I think I can make most people laugh or smile. That's probably common, but.
Your top strength in business?
Well, building community.
What was your first job?
Working at a clothing store with my mom. Yeah.
What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
Ooh, that's such a good one. I wonder what everyone here thinks. I would like to make music.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the best compliment someone can give you?
You're authentic. You're genuine.
A cause you're passionate about?
Changes, but I do care a lot about female founders. But I think it's not just female founders. I've learned it's anyone who have talents but they just don't have resources. That makes me very angry because, and I want people who have talents to have the resources to grow fast.
Who are 5 alive or dead people you would want to have dinner with?
These are so many questions. Is it
21? Yes.
What? Okay. 5?
5.
BTS. The boy band. That's 7 of them, so maybe that's it. I actually would love to have dinner with all 7 of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's your answer.
That makes me sound shallow. But at the moment, yes.
Okay.
They're so talented, and they were nobodies 6 years ago, and now they're selling out stadiums everywhere. So I'm curious what that experience has been like. Yeah, that are like underdogs who got their resources. Someone believed in them, and they grew. So I think that's the theme I love.
Okay. One thing on your bucket list?
Oh, swimming with turtles, which I want to do tomorrow.
Okay, good. Awesome.
But is it allowed to swim with turtles? Just
don't touch.
I was letting Ann know I wanted to hook you guys up on a sailing catamaran tour. Anyone?
yes. Okay, we'll talk.
We're all gonna go.
So, one last question. This is not part of the 21 rapid fire.
You said 21.
Yes. 20. So this is this is the last one. We played a little game here. Who played this game? Okay.
Great cards are hard.
Yes. So this question comes from 0 to 1 book.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What important truth do very few people agree with you on?
So hard. What important? I think I have the same one. Let me read. What important truth do very What was your answer?
It's about you.
After I go, maybe you should go too. What important truth do very few people agree with? I remember this from that book. Well, I touched on this briefly, but I don't think many people really believe that they can do whatever they want to do. And I didn't either until I started working on the accelerator. The people who tend to be successful, even in the 3 months that I see them grow, like the people who really believe that they can do X, they actually do it. And I think not many people really believe that truth. So hopefully more people, including myself, believe that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So let's open it up for questions.
Thank you.
Good.
This is so hard. Hi, Nigel. Yeah.
Hi, Nigel Ford, you spoke a little bit earlier. First off, I just want to thank you for coming out. I agree with a lot of things you said. I believe in empowering individuals who have a dream. I think it's really sad when they don't have resources, so I love that. I also have a huge passion for making music, so let's make music. Well, my question is, when you face adversity or distractions, what strategies have you developed to keep your why and your goals on the forefront of your mind?
So the question is, if I'm faced with an adversity, what do I do?
Adversities or distractions, how do you keep your goals
On the forefront of my mind.
or your why, your reasons why?
I think connecting with few people that you're helping helps me a lot. So, for example, during the workaway, the planning process was super exhausting because we have 40 people attending this workaway, and I was like, this is going to be a disaster. What am I going to do with 40 people at the house? What if they kill each other? But I spoke with, like, I would have one-on-one conversations with them every time I got stressed out, and like hearing their feedback about how the workaway has been going has been really helpful. So just talking to very few people that you are actually helping and seeing, getting feedback from them and being very honest with, having that trust with the other helps me stay grounded and know that I have to just keep working hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How did you convince your parents to like?
Such a good question.
That is such a
Took a while. I think my mom finally understands what I do, and she Googles me now, which is really stressful. She like found an interview I did on a radio that I really bombed, and she's like, Jiwon, you really need to practice your talking skills. And yeah, so she grills me. So how I convinced them? I think just through. I think they saw that I was enjoying what I was doing finally, and that was enough for them. Yeah, I didn't really explain to them. I think they just saw how I was growing, how I was growing while I was doing this, and that I cared so much that my mom was like, wow, you're just like working during vacation. And I think that's when she stopped bugging me.
How did you start getting these interviews with founders when you were first like
For my project before I got the job? Yeah. You cold email people, and I'm always surprised how many people respond to your cold emails. Like I interviewed Nate from Airbnb. He's the CTO of Airbnb, and I got his email through my boss, and I emailed him, and he like wrote back very short sentences, but like I kept asking him, even though I knew that he kind of was too busy for it, and like he eventually said yes. So I think perseverance and just like believing that the other person wants to help you is important. So don't ever doubt yourself when you want to cold email someone for help. Yeah.
Question about Wefunder.
Yes.
Are there any government incentives for investors in the U.S., like for instance tax breaks, like they are in like the UK or Canada?
That's a question I might not know the answer to. I don't believe so. Yeah, I don't think so. But I will check and email you. But I'm pretty sure there are no tax incentives. Yeah.
And what leads some Wefunder campaigns to be more successful than others?
I think a good story is important. Like having very few people who really care about what you're doing is so important. For example, there is a soccer club. It's called Chattanooga Soccer Club, and they raised close to $1 million, I think, from like thousands of people. And each invested like $100, but because they have like loyal fans who really love what you're doing, I think that's like the sweet spot where people really care about what you're doing. Yeah, and having this good story of why you're raising from investors who might not be accredited, from your customers, your fans, like why is that important to you? And if you can translate that into a good story, I think people will want to invest.
I was kind of curious more about your accelerator and what your vision was for that in terms of, what did you hope to be the outcome of, creating this space for the women or for immigrants and all of that?
At the beginning, I really didn't know what would happen because I'd never made this before. But I think the vision was that things just get more equal in the future. So there were 6 companies that we invested in who had at least one female founder in the first cohort. One of them got into Y Combinator, which is like a really, really great accelerator in the Bay Area. And like if you have a lot of women leaders who are founding companies, then young girls will look at them and be like, I can do this too. And I think just having more female founders, like helping more and helping like at least one of them get to the next step was important for me. So it wasn't like a grand vision, but it was more of like, how can we help each of them? Like we only have 6 companies to help, like how can we best help them? And that was the same case for immigrant founders. There was one company that had nothing coming in and they got into YC after 3 months. And so like, just doing that, I was very impressed and inspired by the people in the program.
So as a follow-up question then, what was it that stood out with the immigrant and the female founders that actually got to that next level? I mean, what was that as a component of going through your accelerator program, or like how did that even happen?
So XX has had interviews with a lot of YC alumni. YC is like probably the best network you can be a part of if you're an entrepreneur. And because Wefunder graduated from YC, the founders had a lot of connections to YC founders. So it was very easy to ask them to come speak and do this fireside chat dinner. And after dinner, because you had dinner with these founders who are a few steps ahead of you, they will try their best to help. And so I think that's kind of the magic formula was that it was such a small family vibe, and these founders who were experienced, they wanted to help the younger founders, and I think that was the only secret. Yeah.
I think the big challenge of starting accelerators to find the good startups. How did you find or cultivate those relationships with the startups? How did you find the startups?
Oh yeah, that is the hardest part, is getting good companies. For the first cohort, because it was our first time, we used a lot of Facebook groups, surprisingly, and they all worked. There is an excellent group called Alpha for female founders that was created by one of the engineers who worked at YC. We also reached out to a lot of Slack communities with entrepreneurs. And eventually, we asked a lot of the speakers who came to dinner to share a tweet about XX and the deadline that we have. And I think that was really helpful, having like founders who are experienced share a tweet, and people who follow them can see that they can apply.
Do you think being Bay Area helped you to find good startups?
Help being
Bay Area?
Oh, for sure. If I wasn't in the Bay Area, it would be very hard to do XX. Because founders, Wefunder works out of a house in Noe Valley, which is a neighborhood in San Francisco. And a lot of the founders who came to speak, they live in the area, so some of them even walk to our house. So just that convenience makes it so easy. So if I had to do an XX, let's say I wanted to do XX here, it would be very difficult because a lot of the mentors that are experienced don't live in Hawaii. And it may be some of them travel a lot and I can't reach them. So convenience is key, and which is why Bay Area is a really good place. Even though there are so many good founders everywhere, there's a huge concentration of founders there. Yeah.
So what do you recommend for our community?
It's hard. I've met so many wonderful founders here. I've been to Oahu 3 times, and every time I'm very inspired. I don't know. I mean, I guess the workaway trip was an experiment to see if we can help local founders. Like, we've had a lot of, I reached out to like Blue Startups, Sultan Ventures, Impact Hub, a lot of groups here to see if they can attend the Workaway dinners, which has been going on every single night since last Saturday, just to include them and show you like what we do in San Francisco. And what we do in San Francisco is not, you know, the right way to do things, but we have 6 mentors who are visiting from SF who are very experienced and they want to help. So it is really, really difficult. And I think that's the challenge that Wefunder is also trying to figure out, is how do we help founders who, like, for example, live in Fargo, North Dakota. We have one founder who's from there right now. Like, how do we help someone like him? Who's brilliant, but he doesn't have the resources. I think Workaway is a really good example of how it can be done. Because who doesn't want to come to Hawaii? And a lot of the mentors, when I asked them to fly to Hawaii, they were like, okay, within the first 2 hours. So I don't know. I think it might be worth it for you to try this out. I don't know if there would be a rich entrepreneur who would give their house and like help rent out the house to you for free, and then ask a bunch of founders and that stuff, and I can definitely help you with that, and see if they would fly out themselves, and you can cover lodging. That's what we're doing, and we're trying to see if this works.
So the biggest thing you're saying is the resources, having those mentors being present and sharing their knowledge.
Yes.
How about capturing people I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs that had some success or exit, and now they live on the island.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well.
That's cool.
It's a good.
Didn't know that.
So how do we get those people to get passionate about entrepreneurship again, or wanting to help out? And what do you think is unique about our ecosystem and how we can utilize?
To be honest, I don't know if I know enough about your ecosystem here. I've been trying to learn the last 3 times that, like, this is my 3rd time being here. But the founders that we brought, the 6 mentors that we brought, they all really care about the startup community because they were part of YC. So they know that being part of a community really worked for them. So there is this pay it forward culture in SF. And I think Hawaiians, because you're so community-based, it can be even better than what's done in San Francisco. People are very busy in SF, but I think Hawaiians are, like, from what I've seen, everyone is very giving. They want to include you in the community. And so I think if you are able to convince one founder to do startup grind like this, and maybe they ask them, like, do you have any friends who are entrepreneurs who have exited, they're on the island, like, can they come and help out like 2 founders this week, for example? So I think you have to start very small, but I'm sure there are people out there who have that pay it forward culture ingrained in them, and they want to do that here in Hawaii.
So there's a challenge, I believe this challenge is in the Bay Area as well, which is cost of living. And you know, as a startup founder, you want to be able to work on your project, but at the same time, you need to make money. So what are some of your suggestions or advice to us to make our startups happen?
Oh man, do I know enough? Like I said before, I would grow a very small community. If I were to live in Hawaii, I would find that one mentor who wants to help startups. Maybe you say, okay, mentor, can you help 5 founders? Can you talk to them every month or every 2 weeks? And they should do it for free. Like, no one who has come to our event has ever asked me to pay them for anything. So find that one person who will want to help 5 founders in Hawaii, for example. And then I think that's how it starts. You start with one person, and if that person does it, they probably know other founders. Like, founders only know founders usually. So if they if you find one, then you can find the next one, and that's how I would approach it. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Any other questions?
If you were to pick one investment or one particular project that made the most impact or the most meaningful, what stands out to you?
Can you say that one more?
If you were to pick one memorable project that you funded or a particular company,
investments, yeah.
something that made an impact, is there one that really stands out to you?
That's a great question. From the first cohort, it was female founders, and there was one woman who grew up in Atlanta, and she never left Atlanta. And she also had a similar background where her parents told her to be a doctor, but she was building this website called Quirktastic, and it's really wonderful. It's like a friendship app for quirky people who like anime, who like K-pop. And so she built this app in Atlanta. She got into our accelerator, so she moved to San Francisco for the first time. And I think what's special is that she moved herself to Oakland after the program. She never thought about moving to SF because she heard from a lot of people in Atlanta that SF is a crappy place to live, like investors won't invest in you and things like that. So she had a misconception about San Francisco. But after the program, she moved to Oakland, and now she's doing an accelerator at Snapchat. So yeah, I think that's a really good example. Like once you're exposed to good resources, you grow so much, and then you go for something bigger after.
So all entrepreneurs at one point face failure or criticism from family or friends, whatever they need. What strategies did you come up with along your journey to face that failure or mistakes? This sounds really simple, but you just have to keep your head down and keep working and not listen to the haters. I don't know. Yeah, and I think being close to the community that you're trying to help or people that you want to help, like you must have, if you're an entrepreneur, you must have like that one perfect person that you want to help and you want to sell your product to. Just focusing on that person and just heads down, work hard, and not caring about anything else, I think, is what I did.
You've mentioned resources and like a lot of the resources available in SF.
Yeah.
Can you name those resources? Because I think that like we have a rich, like there's a lot of resources. So what are they? Like what are the things that startups really need to flourish?
People, I think that's all.
Like good mentors.
Good mentors. I think people who are just one step ahead of you or two steps ahead of you, it's super helpful because in SF, there are people who, let's say, who did a seed round, and you can easily email them and say, can we get coffee? And then you can get coffee the next day and just pick their brains. But yeah, I think having the people around you, having really smart people around you all the time who are happy to help you is very important. That's what I value about SF. Like SF is not perfect. It's not my favorite city, but what I do love is that I can reach out to pretty much anyone and they will offer help if I ask.
Does this model work with non-tech companies?
That's a great question.
That's such a good question, and that's something that I've always wanted to try. The reason we focus on tech companies is because Wefunder is a tech company, and all of the people that we know are tech companies. But what one advantage we have is that we also have a lot of breweries on Wefunder, a lot of coffee shops that raised on Wefunder. So I think there are resources that we can tap into at Wefunder. And I definitely think it would work because if like everyone kind of has a formula and I think
like you can't do your business perfectly because everyone has a different path to success. But if someone has experienced it, they can tell you like what to do and what not to do, that are like very tactical advice they can give you. So I 100% think it would work in specialties like breweries, coffee house, accelerators. Yeah.
Any chance of service type businesses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it really could work anywhere. You just have to care about it, and you have to find people who care about what you care about.
Follow up with that question, what about social impact types of projects that maybe have maybe some type of a nonprofit component? I mean, obviously it's, the objective is to get money and make money so that you can pay back your investors, but I was also wondering if there is some type of social impact component, or is it just strictly, revenue generation and that kind of thing?
So the question is, will it work for nonprofits as well, or?
Yeah, like maybe more social, not nonprofit, but
Yeah.
social enterprises
Mhm.
that have like a very definite social impact.
Yeah, I think that's what happens here at Impact Hub and all of the other impact hubs around the area. I think that's what you're trying to do, right? Communities of impact-driven founders. Is there a community like that here in Honolulu?
Well, I guess here. That's probably the best place I could think of, yeah.
But I think, is your question about XX in particular?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, does your accelerator look at, or is there a certain type of profile of business that you look at?
Oh, I see. It's about XX.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch that. No, we've funded all kinds of businesses, but as a fund, because you are investing with someone else's money, there is an expectation that this is gonna have a return. But we've invested in a pot company, like physical, like stacking pots in the kitchen. Maybe it'll be like, I know I had to like clarify what kind of pot that was. But a stackable pot company, because maybe it's gonna be like Martha Stewart. Who knows? It could be $1 billion business if like everyone wants to stack pots in the future. But we've also invested in, what's another good one? Oh, Wonder Hoodie, which is bulletproof hoodie. Because this founder, her mom's neighbor got shot in the chest 8 times, living in rural, poor part of Seattle. And she's like, oh my gosh, my mom isn't, like, she could also get shot if, like, this is a dangerous neighborhood. So she decided to make bulletproof hoodies. And maybe it's like a lifestyle business. It's not going to be like a rocket ship $1 billion company, but we really believed in her mission and invested in that company. So it really varies, but I think the hope is that it will be a large company. There is a potential to be a very big company. For the accelerator. But that's not the case for Wefunder. For Wefunder, you can choose all kinds of contracts like revenue share. A lot of breweries tend to do that, or loans.
You talked about like being minimalist for a little bit, that kind of thing. But when is it like not the right time to raise funds? A lot of people are coming in and I need to raise funds. I need it because I need it. But when like would you advise somebody to be like, no, I don't think you need it? Yeah. Was there any examples, or when would you advise somebody not to?
The rule of thumb is like, if anyone says I want to give you money, then take the money. Yeah, I mean, it sounds really if someone's like, take my money, take it.
There's that pressure to pay it back, or there is the pressure.
Right,
things that you own you.
Right. There is pressure, but when is it a not good time to raise money? No, I think my first answer, like, take the money if someone offers it to you. Take the money. I'm blanking out a little
Let me see if there's an example. Oh, well, the obvious answer in like the VC world is like if you're not gonna grow 10x in the next year after you take the money, like if you haven't found product market fit that will take you into a rocket ship, then don't take the money. Like Wefunder has also not taken any institutional money. We have raised all of the money from our investors who invest online. And that is because there hasn't been like the rocket ship formula that we found. But if like you're growing really fast and you know product market fit, then that's a great time to have extra money.
Did you have a mentor that helped guide you through this process? Like, did you have a pioneer that first broke through the wall before you did to kind of lead the way for you, or where were you?
Right. I think Nick at Wefunder, who's the CEO of Wefunder, has been my biggest mentor. He's the one who was like, well, if you're angry about female founders, why don't you do something about it? He would be very like direct with his feedback, and he would never tell me to like do something. He was like, just figure it out. And that gave me space to grow because he didn't tell me exactly what to do. So I was like, okay, well, I have the power to do it. If he says I can do it, then that sounds good. I can do a side project on my own. Yeah, but I think the best kind of mentor, the best mentor for me was Nick at Wefunder. So I would say, like, if anyone is working at startups right now, find that one person who's going to push you to think bigger and help you get there.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Yeah.
If your mom had said no, would you still do what you're doing?
Oh, my mom still said, like, what are you doing? I don't want to talk to you. Like, don't work in startups.
Yeah, she like completely like.
Oh, yeah. Now I don't listen to my mom. I was a good child for like 20 years, so I feel like I can be not a good child anymore. Yeah, don't listen to mom. She's not always right. I used to think my mom was always right. I said this to middle school kids last week because at this like intense Korean school because they were like, oh, can you come and talk about your journey? And I was like, the first thing I said is don't listen to your mom. She's not always right. And the teachers freaked out. But I think it's true. Do you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your life, and mom is only happy if you're happy. So
Biggest takeaway tonight. So don't listen to your mom.
Oh my God, my mom can find this video. No, okay.
It's gonna be on YouTube.
She's gonna find it. I swear, she calls me every day. She thinks I'm famous or something. Please cut out the last one. Thank you.
Any other? One last question.
Oh yes.
Have there been any projects that have gone past Wefunder SNS that haven't really made it, that have kind of made a little dip in your head that you're really
Wow.
That's
What's
really
the question?
cool. Oh, sorry. The question is, has there been a project on Wefunder that kind of made it and made a dent in my head?
Or that didn't make it? You know,
That didn't make it?
that kind of came through the application process that you saw it came through your desk that didn't really make it to the funding process, and you were just like, I wonder what happened.
Oh, wow, that's such a good question.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I have an example. There's a company that I will not name because I don't want them to know. But there's a company that, so we have a fundraising team, a business development team that will say, okay, this company will probably raise money. Because of like the history of how many companies we've helped, we kind of know how much they can raise based on like data. And there was this one company that we were like ignoring because we didn't think they were gonna raise any money. Like it was really bad. Like they made the profile and it was just it just didn't seem like a good fit. They actually launched on Wefunder and ended up raising over $1 million. And so that is an example of like there's probably so many companies that we missed just because we overlooked them. And that's why it's not good that like there are 3 people on our BD team like deciding which is gonna raise money or not, because you never know. So that's always a good lesson. It's always like surprising for me. Yeah. I'm actually very curious about the people here.